My biggest concern, as I said to you then, and I want to share it with the audience now, is that there is a lack of appreciation amongst my generation or younger about how lucky we are to have lived in this relative peace, the long peace as it's known historically, right?
It's the inner Cold War period, which was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. It's when the great powers ceased funding opposing sides on insurgencies, so that this is a period when Africa, I think parts of it had double-digit growth rates or much higher growth rates. And I get it, tiny economies, so it takes a while to get somewhere. And now that's over, right? Russia had turned inwards as Putin was trying to consolidate power, and China had turned inwards with all these economic reforms. Well, now they're turning outwards. And the United States notices it's not the only big boy on the block anymore, and it's having palpitations over that one. We got these very reckless leaders all over the place.
This is The Global Gambit.
Okay. Isn't that what we're doing right now? Isn't that why I'm asking you?
I guess I don't know the answer on what Putin, what Xi Jinping and friends plan to do. I think anyway.
No, but that's my point. Like, you're talking about the Europeans needing to have a better plan. But if they can't plan based on some degree of speculation, then what's the point?
You're right. Plans contain assumptions. So you state your assumptions, what they are, and away you go.
We've been having a hell of a load of hypotheses, right? During our conversation.
You're talking about the future. How does one know?
So, okay, let's talk more about the past. How much do you think the past of Russian relations with China can define the future of them?
I've done an entire podcast on Russia and Chinese relations that sum up what little I know on the subject. And for many years, Russia was strong and in the driver's seat. And now China's strong and Russia's in the receiving end of that relationship. And the reversal is a combination of Russia's implosion and China's rise, right? And it will. It's not a good position for Russia to be in, and then it's isolating itself completely from the West, then throws it right at China's mercy. And I don't think China has ever been merciful.
But why would China care more specifically? They're
care about what? About holding all the cards vis-a-vis Russia? Of course you like holding cards vis-a-vis Russia.
But they're not. They're indifferent to who leads the country. And look at Iran right now. They don't care whether the regime topples as long as they get what they want. As long as they
well, we're talking about whether they're going to get what they want from Russia, and I'm suggesting they probably will.
Yes, of course. But how much does that depend on what state Russia is in? How much does that depend on the personal
the weaker Russia is, the better from Chinese. I mean, in terms of what leverage you have over them. But understand that getting what you want, and it has two parts to that equation. One is the competence of your own strategy. So that lies within your own department. And it also depends on the incompetence of the other side, and something you do not control. And be aware, if the other side's very competent, you're going to have troubles.
But to be devil's advocate on that, the Chinese aren't free of their own challenges.
No, they aren't. Nor is Russia. I gave you the math on their relative GNPs, GDPs. China's just got a much bigger piggy bank to go spend money to do things than Russia does.
No, for sure. Look, Russia's longevity in its current form is a ticking time bomb. It's a matter of time. But this is why I think it's important to.
Who knows? Think of North Korea. It amazes me how long that dystopian mess, the Kim dynasty, can remain in power. It just seems to be endless.
So at what point does strategic dependence for Russia turn into strategic vulnerability?
I think the strategic dependence is a strategic vulnerability.
So you don't think there comes a point where we're already past the point of too far for Russia? They can't reverse their dependency.
Another concept: pivotal errors. We all make errors, but if you make a pivotal error, it's a term that I cooked up. Probably based on somebody else's whatever that I don't even remember. There's no going back to the status quo ante, and the choices following your pivotal error are much worse than the ones you had before going in. So Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, pivotal error, because they're in a world of hurt afterwards, and it's it's going to be much worse than before having done that. Vladimir Putin, if he had just kept with, I got Crimea at no cost and quit right there, he would have gotten his Nord Stream 2 in and be making all kinds of money that way. It's over. He's made a pivotal error. There's just no going back. The choices going forward for Russians are worse and worse and worse. So good strategists try to avoid pivotal errors. And what I worry about as an American is whether the United States is about to make a pivotal error. Going after Greenland would be a pivotal error for the United States.
Okay, no, that's fair. But okay, just on the Sino-Russo dynamic, the thing that interests me is that the worse things get, the more desperate Putin becomes.
Oh, yeah, he's on death ground. Another concept from Sun Tzu, death ground. It means you are in such rotten shape that your only hope of survival, and it's not a really high hope, is to fight. And so for Putin personally, that's why he's going to double down, because if he goes, oh, gee whiz, I made a mistake, boys. Can't we back out of this one? He's dead man, right? I would imagine. And so he's not going to do that, I believe. And I'm speculating, but I think I got pretty high odds on this one. But on all speculation, you make a hypothesis and then you keep examining it. And when the data suggests hypothesis is wrong, by all means, change your hypothesis. So death ground's an important one. You can also flip death ground on Ukraine, because it's not just that if Ukraine capitulates, not only is Zelensky a dead man, but the Ukrainian people are dead people. The number of people who would be systematically murdered and their culture would be gone is huge. The culture affects everybody. And so if you do that to other people, you galvanize the most incredible opposing alliance, so that even a failed country can become a very competent adversary. And a previous example of that is Hitler with his genocidal plans that turns Russia, which was basically a failed state after all this collectivization and shooting the Soviet Union after shooting the general staff and other people, it turns them into a lethal adversary. And it galvanizes the alliance from hell that takes care of Adolf Hitler. So death ground, it's a good concept to play around and go, who's on death ground and who's not. The Russian people are not on death ground, whereas Ukrainian people are. The value of victory, what's called value of the object, another concept, is much higher for Ukrainians generally than for Russians. For Russians, it's like it'll be a feel-good moment if they could actually win whatever they define win in Ukraine is. But for Ukraine, it's existential. So they will never give up. And the Russians are just going to be, they're on a trajectory to wind up like North Korea, give it a generation or two.
Well, it sounds to me like you're describing the Wondrous Trinity, or aspects of it.
Right? The what?
The Wondrous Trinity, Clausewitz. The idea of the rationality of Putin, the hatred for his people, the probability of the military imploding. How much does that play a relevance to? Oh,
the Trinity, or you can, what is it? It's the government, the people, and the military are associated with certain abstractions, passions for the people, rationality for the government, creativity for the military, although it's only most closely associated. But anyway, you can use that triangle as a framework to do an assessment on another society. And it's a useful framework to use. And then others, I think it was Michael Handel, a long departed colleague of mine at the Naval War College, who said there should be a fourth item that, because Clausewitz before the Industrial Revolution, that should be technology or something, technology, economics or something, and to make it a quadrilateral instead of a triangle. And I don't know what his abstraction would be associated with the economy. Who knows? Hard work? I don't know.
No, I think the tech one is important.
Yeah, well, that would be Michael Handel would say you need all four. But there are various ways you can assess another country. The Trinity is one way. It's good. You do my Trinity, their Trinity, strengths and weaknesses for both. That's one way of assessing things.
Well, what about, I don't know, the center of gravity then? or the relevance of decisive?
Oh, for center of gravity, I think for Clausewitz, the idea, and then you can go, is it in physics? There's one, but as you're playing around with it in politics or something else, I think it's the idea. It's like the item that if you detonate it, the whole structure goes. Like if you're trying to detonate a building, if you could figure out exactly where to lay the charge, the whole building would go. And so this is where people think if they hit a center of gravity, presupposing one even exists, that they would win the war operationally, and but whether you achieve your strategic objective would be another matter entirely. But then the question is, with centers of gravity, it lends you to think of only one instrument of national power, thinking, or one military target, when in fact what holds up a society may be a whole network of different things. Anyway,
how much
whatever.
Does that
it's a concept. It's interesting concept.
But how much does it apply, or say Jean Monet's concepts reply to the current circumstances with Russia?
All right. I am no great reader of Jean Monnet. I've read passages of him in other people's books, but my impression of him, he's very operationally minded about just massing armies and going for military objectives. And I think it's Michael Handel's, this is my former colleague, reading of Clausewitz, where he emphasizes the importance of objectives, and particularly limited and unlimited objectives. I think this is Michael Handel's interpretation of Clausewitz, but some Clausewitz expert can feel free to take me out. But I think those two are useful concepts, because an unlimited objective is when you're going to do regime change on the defeated, and the most unlimited sort of objective is when you're going to also commit genocide on the defeated people, right? But limited objectives are a whole continuum of things where the defeated government's going to still be in power, and there's a whole continuum of what the objective is. Is it going to be take a little bit of territory? Is it you're just negotiating some trade deal? Is it they stole your bullion and they're going to give your bullion back? There's a whole continuum of what these limited objectives are. But the basic discriminator of limited and unlimited is very useful, I think, because the unlimited objective puts the country that's a target of the unlimited objective on death ground, which means they're going to fight to the death. And it's transformative on how a country will fight, whereas a limited objective doesn't put the other side on death ground, and how hard they fight may not be that hard. So when you're doing limited and unlimited objectives, you have to do it for all parties engaged. Does party A have an unlimited party versus B, and does B have an unlimited party objective versus the other? For instance, Putin certainly has an unlimited objective against Zelensky and the government, and certainly against the Ukrainian people. He wants to erase it as a culture. Zelensky and friends, and Ukrainians generally, do not have an unlimited objective against Russia. They have no desire to conquer Russia. They want Russia to stay home. That's it. Just go away. They would, I'm sure, love to see Vladimir Putin dead. But having Russians stay home would be the big thing for Ukrainians, and stay there from now until doomsday.
Yeah.
So it's an unlimited war visa for Putin, and it is a limited war for Ukrainians. It makes Russia's wartime objectives much harder to achieve. They're not feasible. Ukraine's could well be feasible.
Well, it's a description. It's a mixture of the ideological motivations as it is the practical ability to achieve them, right?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing about objectives, is when you're doing your assessment, you should look at your strengths and weaknesses and all your enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and anybody who might want to join the party, their strengths and weaknesses, and then from that you pick a feasible objective. And it's amazing the number of belligerents who've chosen unfeasible objectives, right? My country included. We're going to create democracy in Afghanistan. It's not feasible.
No, nation building.
The Afghanis are not in on that.
So do you think that this is a reflection of the way the world's going, or the Western policy military approach is limited warfare now?
What's the this in your sentence? Is this a reflection? This.
What you're talking about, the greater emphasis on limited objectives.
I'm just giving you a concept that you can apply backwards and forwards across time. If you find it useful, use it. If you don't, toss it.
But more what I'm trying to do is implement it in the real world right now. We're seeing a rejection.
As part of your assessment, you were back when we were talking about what's speculation and what's not. I would have part of my assessment, regardless what country I am, is what are everybody's objectives? Which ones are limited and unlimited? What's the value of the object? Like, how much do they want their various grab list of objectives? And who's their primary, secondary, tertiary adversary? And to put it all up on the wall and see what aligns. It'll tell you a great deal about the world.
But let me be more specific, because what I mean is that I feel that, especially in Europe, I sort of alluded to it earlier, we need to have a greater clarification in our mind about what it is we want to represent and how we aim to do that. For a long time, for much of my lifetime, the West or Europe has always preached about democracy, rule of law, but then we're not consistent in upholding it. We go in and conduct an illegal war in Iraq. We go in and try and nation build in Afghanistan, and it doesn't sustain. And if anything, it turns the rest of the world, the global South, or whatever, against the West. I like democracy. I like living in Europe and that sort of thing. It goes to what you were talking about America. But my point is that is it not time for us to have a reevaluation of how we seek to conduct ourselves?
That's what's going on right now. That's why it's so profoundly destabilizing. The old certainties are now uncertain. And in part, it's the passing of the World War II generation who, because there were so many veterans that were profoundly influenced by that, that they had one way of looking at things, and their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren are not informed by these experiences and are taking a different view of things. And history moves on, right? We're in a different situation now. And we're in a period of very rapid technological change, which many people find profoundly destabilizing. At your age, it's like, wow, the world's my oyster, all these career possibilities opening up. I think for older people, who are particularly in their 50s or better, who are scared stiff that their profession's going to disappear and wondering then what. So it's we're in a profoundly unstable moment. And we also are in a period when there are reckless leaders in high places in many important countries across the globe. And as a historian, to me, it feels like the 1930s in really bad ways. And so it's important for all of us to engage with each other, to not do a redo of a world war. It's such a mess going in that direction. Anyway, we're portentous times.
Well, yeah. We had our heart-to-heart before we came on air about, our concerns, generational considerations. My biggest concern, as I said to you then, and I want to share it with the audience now, is that there is a lack of appreciation amongst my generation or younger about how lucky we are to have lived in this relative peace, the long peace as it's known historically, right?
It's the inter-Cold War period, which was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. It's when the great powers ceased funding opposing sides on insurgencies, so that this is a period when Africa, I think parts of it had double-digit growth rates or much higher growth rates. And I get it, tiny economies, so it takes a while to get somewhere. And now that's over, right? Russia had turned inwards as Putin was trying to consolidate power. And China had turned inwards with all these economic reforms. Well, now they're turning outwards. And the United States notices it's not the only big boy on the block anymore, and it's having palpitations over that one. And we got these very reckless leaders all over the place. And unlike, as I mentioned, I think it was before you got me on the air, of this World War, the generation that came off of World War II, both in the defeated countries and in the victors, that understood and don't want another world war, and they're the ones who set up the prosperity that was incredible in Europe. And this includes Germans and Japanese, right? The Japanese economic miracle, it's after World War II. And it led to incredible compounding prosperity. I think part of the problem, here's another concept for you: negative and positive objectives. So a positive objective is you make something happen. So I'm going to take that hill, either I do or don't, and you see whether I did. A negative objective is, say, prevent you from taking that hill. Well, if no one takes the hill, some could argue you were never trying, so I never achieved anything, right? And so institutions are in many ways about negative objectives, preventing disasters. And so people see the overhead from them and the inefficiencies and some of the corruption and go, look at all of this. But if you're going to take down USAID, and I'm no expert in USAID, but if USAID, by providing aid that prevents something from sparking into a regional war, that aid is actually really cheap. But no one's going to be able to prove that it prevented the regional war, even though it may well have. And it's like people get sick of regulations. Okay, I guess in Switzerland, you've just had there's been this terrible fire and a lot of young people died. And that one had to do, I suspect, with not enough inspectors coming through. But if the institutions inspect, then you have no fires like the one where 40 young people have lost their lives. On the other hand, you go, well, the institutions are always expensive. Let's get rid of them. Well, then you're going to have all sorts of unfolding disasters on your hands. So it's about these negative objectives. They're incredibly important, but they're unmeasurable, and therefore they're inherently controversial. So people are going to go for the tactical wins and the clickbait of what they can get at the tactical and operational level, whereas the statespeople who are thinking of the next generation and about these negative objectives are going to get no credit. And we think about the real heroes in human life are those people who averted world wars. We'll never know who they were or what decisions they made, but they're the true heroes.
Okay. And so to try and avoid saying it speculatively, Sally.
Everything is speculative, apparently, this afternoon.
No, I'm just being facetious. But what I mean is my question, my follow-up is, what would you prescribe? How would you assess, therefore, the best way to educate people and to ensure that younger generations are aware of what matters?
I don't know the best way. I know that as an old retired professor, much of my education provided by national fellowships that were paid on the taxpayer's dime, I'm doing my best to provide concepts to people in a variety of podcasts. And this is not remotely the retirement career I had in mind, right? And it's to share concepts with others to help them make informed decisions. Because I'm looking at the United States and what goes on right now in the United States. It rhymes with ancient Athens. Ancient Athens blew its alliance system by being ever more coercive with its allies. So they got fed up with Athens. And then it got overextended in a bunch of recreational wars, things that it didn't have to be involved in, but it was. And then it had really dysfunctional domestic politics where different factions are going at it. And together, this destroyed Athens. You can go visit the Parthenon. It's beautiful. But to me, it is a mute symbol of a civilization that destroyed itself and never recovered. Do not think that this is a one-off thing for Athens. This is a human problem, that you can do things from which it's unrecoverable. And I look at the United States now, and we got a bunch of operationally, tactically focused people in both parties running the show. And they need to get with the program and start thinking of the next generation before it's too late.
Quite the moment to end on. I was on.
Good idea.
I was in the Parthenon in August. It was a delight to finally visit it properly. Probably not the best time to go. It was 40 degrees, but the principles and symbolism of it still struck home, Sally, and certainly much of what you said in this extensive and very generous length of a podcast, I really appreciate, and I hope it's the first.
I'm devoted to your generation. I'm doing what little I can, but I believe we are in an all hands on deck moment, Navy terminology, in which everyone needs to do what they can. And if together we bring out our best ideas and hear everybody out, and certainly don't kill people with whom you disagree, but hear them out, we'll muddle our way through this. We're all descendants from people who did, right? That our grandparents and parents and others, they made it through a peaceful end to the Cold War. That is an enormous achievement. So it's now our turn, particularly people my age, to do something.
Well, I just hope there's a little bit more of piping down, but I certainly bravo Zulu, to use what limited naval terms I know from my grandfather in his time.
Do they use that one in Britain too?
They did. I'm not sure if it's
they still use it in the U.S. Navy.
Well, bravo Zulu.
Oh, yes, they do. Admirals send it around. You've got a 3-page op-ed. Bravo Zulu. Okay, it was 3 pages. Yippee-i-o.
Well, for our fellow landlubbers, they may not know these detailed terms, but it's always a pleasure to speak with you and people of such intellect. So thank you very much for that.
I got no special intellect. I'm an old professor. I did what I was supposed to do. I graded all the papers. I spent time with students, and I spent my vacations doing research. And this is what little I know. But I'm no more special than anybody else is, and I'm no smarter than anybody else. This is what it looks like at the end of a career if you spent your time reading a certain selection of readings. Anyway, it's been fun. Good luck with your podcast.
Thank you very much, everyone on the outside. We'll see you all soon.